In a few short weeks, this country will experience the 10th anniversary of the most horrific event to take place within our borders, 9/11. Americans have got to realize and recognize that this is just a taste of what Israel faces virtually every day. America must continue to stand behind Israel, to stand up for Israel, and we must make our voices heard so that our president hears our voice and leads us from the front. Benjamin Netanyahu said on May 24th in front of Congress, we had a president there for a change, he said this: Israel has no better friend than America, and America has no better friend than Israel. As long as we live, let us stand with our Israeli brothers and sisters. And as God said to Joshua 4 times in the first chapter of the book of Joshua, stand firm, be courageous.
One of my staff came to me today and he said, Pastor, you know, I was reading an email that said they now know what the cause of the earthquake in Washington was, in that area of Virginia and Washington. And I said, they do. That would be kind of interesting. What is it? He said, well, our founding fathers rolled over in their grave. Why do we need to stand with Israel? Let me give you just 6 quick reasons why we need to stand with Israel. Number 1 is because it's the right thing to do. In mid-March, I've had the privilege of leading about 14 or 15 tours. I don't remember. In the last couple of years, I've been over there 15 or 16 times with people. And I was standing in Beersheba in mid-March. I was standing on the side of a well and explaining to all the people what that was and where we were. And it was 5:30 in the afternoon, and we left and went into Jerusalem. And the next morning, 8 hours after we left, bombs exploded in the exact site where we were standing. About 3 hours later, in Jerusalem, right down the street from us, bombs went off in the street, injuring 67, killing 2, one of which was a British tourist. A few months prior to that, I've been standing just outside Split Road. There's a bomb shelter there, and you can look across literally into the Gaza Strip, and you can see the Hamas soldiers around, or the Hezbollah soldiers around it. You even watch them at times as they launch these missiles, the Katyushas, coming into Israel. And when you stand there, you see the fear that grips the people, the innocent people who all they want to do is dwell in safety. I'm going to tell you, it's the right thing to do to protect peace-loving, innocent people who merely want to live in safety and peace. It's the right thing to do. And that's the first reason we're here. It's the right thing to do. The second reason we're here is because Israel is a place that God has claimed as His own. He gave that land to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When you read Leviticus chapter 25, verse 23, it says, the land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me, and in all the land of your possession you shall not grant redemption. The point is, it belongs to God.
And then when the Nazi soldiers came in, they gathered them in from all the areas. And they sat them in this big open area that they were standing at right then. And immediately they asked for all the doctors and nurses to stand. And they took them away. See, Hitler was very much concerned about disease. And then he asked for all the musicians and ballerinas and all the people in the arts to stand up. And then they were shot dead. Then for the next 7 hours, anyone who moved or stood up was shot. After the war, less than 2,000 survived. My great-great-grandfather either had a knowing of what was going on, or God was just saving us. But he left before the war broke out. And I look just in my own family what God has done with a couple good Jewish boys. And to realize what happened if my great-grandfather hadn't gotten out. Would my brother be able to have stood before the Supreme Court over 14 times defending the freedom of our religion. We have been blessed over the years with Congress who will stand with Israel. But you know, a lot of our presidents haven't figured it out yet, both Republican and Democrat alike. If you look at it starting back with Carter, coming all the way up to today, there was one president during those times that got it right. It was Ronald Reagan. Right now, Israel today alone has had 5 Katyusha rockets sent into the area. Even though they're supposed to be in truth. How do you trust the people that say, as soon as we take over Jerusalem, we're building condominiums at the Western Wall? See, they don't want Israel to exist. We must stand with Israel. I, as a Jew, want to thank you for what you've done here today. This shows, and don't think they're not listening, they're not watching. They are.
When the State of Israel was formed on May 14, 1948, Harry S. Truman, who was then President of the United States, was one of the first to recognize the fledgling nation and offered to stand shoulder to shoulder with her in our support of her people. Shortly thereafter, the first Arab-Israeli war began when Israel was invaded by 5 other nations. And for the next year, Israel and Israelis fought for their families and their lives throughout all areas of their country. And during that time, America stood shoulder to shoulder with this important friend. This was followed by the Six-Day War in 1967, and 1973's Yom Kippur War found the United States and Israel once again standing shoulder to shoulder. Economically, we just celebrated the 25th anniversary of a free trade agreement with Israel, and so we are not only brothers in arms, but trading partners too. And today, many American Jews and American Christians travel to Israel to visit the Holy Land and absorb the history of the region. Those trips are not only spiritual and educational, but they also go further to cement our relationship with our closest ally in the region. So in all of these ways, the people of America stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel. And while we have recently experienced statements by our leaders that would appear to be a change in that relationship, I want to assure our friends that while our leaders come and go, our support for the people of Israel will not falter. As long as there is an America, we will stand shoulder to shoulder with her. Thank you.
I do want to thank everyone for coming this afternoon, and I want to encourage you, if you haven't gotten materials, to please be sure and pick some up over here at the table and sign the pledge to support Israel if you want to, and I hope everyone here wants to do just that.
Secularstupidist.com, conservative.com, rightosophy.com.